Welcome to the Dynamics Compass podcast, where insights from experts will help Dynamics partners and users navigate their way through the rapidly evolving ecosystem. On this episode, we will talk about the deciding drivers to stay on or move from GP. I'm your host, Rory de Goede, and today we are joined by David Laster. Um, David was brought on at Gravic over 10 years ago for his functional and technical expertise in GP, so to train up people. But today he's the Director of Software Solutions at Gravic, assisting his clients with anything GP, BC, or Power BI related. And just a bit of a fun fact for people that don't know him that well. In the context of work-life balance, you might have heard the saying, "Work to live, not live to work." But David's version would be "work to ski," as that's his passion and what he does every week for from Friday to Sunday, which I envy since I had to give up my yearly snowboarding tradition when I left Europe 9 years ago. But it's great to have you, David. Welcome.
Thank you, Roy. I've been watching your podcasts off and on as they come over and hit my feed. It's a pleasure to be involved with one, and thank you for that introduction as well.
Yeah, that's great. Um, just to understand your background a little bit better, so people know that you know what you're talking about. How long do you and GP go back?
Oh, um, I started Great Plains in March 24th of 1999, I think was the first day that I started fingers on keyboards. It was a very good staff accounting level position,
Hmm.
version 5.0, and using AGL, AP, AR, all that stuff that was way more complex than QuickBooks
Yeah.
was really exciting for me. And I moved from Ohio to Boston to take this job, and I was really excited to finally be in a place where I could have a good mentor and kind of learn a lot more about corporate America, corporate accounting, and finance in general. So it was a great entry level to ERP.
Okay. And what was your journey like from there?
Ultimately, growing with more experience over time, more tools, more techniques.
Yeah.
Developed passion for different parts of it as the organization changed, merged with a public organization. I got the opportunity to work with, same tools, different tools, but a lot broader scale.
Yeah.
Having a global scale and reach gave me the opportunity to learn some really interesting facets of accounting, multi-currency, global consolidations, budgeting and forecasting, things that aren't just, banging away on purchase orders and things inside of Great Plains. I broaden my perspective of how to perform financial statement report writing, ultimately for shareholders, the Q's and the K's and the deliverables that you're in conference calls with the shareholders explaining your financial performance. But that comes in a lot of different ways, but it ultimately started as kind of a passion with financial reporting at a GP.
All right. And
Still is
then
to this day.
and then eventually finding your way into consulting.
Yeah, actually, I was an end user for 4 years, almost to the day, and then pretty much immediately after that, went into a consulting position, learning, implementing. I think at that time, version like 7.0 or 7.5 was out, and it was really getting exciting. The technology, had evolved, and ultimately, after that, when Microsoft acquired Great Plains,
Hmm.
the integration on the Microsoft platform became a lot more, interesting, where
Yeah.
you can integrate with Word and Outlook and Excel in ways that we couldn't do quite as well before.
Yeah. All right. Well, that convinces me at least that you know what you're talking about. Well, we've for the people that have been following the podcast, I've done a few recordings on more the basics and the announcement, like GP is gonna no longer gonna be supported. I wanted to dive a little bit deeper with you. What are you seeing are the main reasons for customers not wanting to move from GP?
I think it's pretty easy to pick a list up. Number one is cost. Number two is diversion, of energy. You only have so much. What are you going to do with it? Do you need to change your GP? A lot of things are connected to Great Plains. So depending on the size and shape of your organization, I'm sure that there's a level of 80/20 out there, right? There's 80% of the organizations can probably move to something else, an appropriate timeline without too much um, too much challenge, but the 20% that really have a lot more deep operations that rely on those periodic updates from Great Plains or have, sales orders and manufacturing orders and purchase orders, like they have everything going on. That's going to be a lot heavier lift because your operations across the board are really anchored in Great Plains.
Yeah. Mm, would that mean there's the potential would be bigger as well? If there's so much in GP, wouldn't there be, yeah, more potential of improvements, more optimization if they go to something newer then? I know the struggle is harder to get there, but wouldn't the return be as well?
Yeah, it is. You're rethinking and you're re-implementing, and you need to go through an evaluation process, right? You have to first, uncover and discover what you have, what you need, what you don't need, and then realize what the other opportunities offer. And is it really worth the return on investment? Because it is an investment. And over
Hmm.
what time period? Sometimes you need to save up for that and you not need to do it in year one. Maybe it's year three, maybe it's year four. Because remember, Great Plains gave us 5 years before they said end of life. Plus, another 2 years for security adjustments. So you
Yeah.
still have a lot of off ramp with Great Plains that buys everybody enough time, I think, depending on, the level of complexity and what you're willing, to go through in terms of introspection and discovery. And go through search to understand, how well especially Business Central may match. And that's a feature that I'm really interested in, having 25 years of Great Plains
Yeah.
is spending a lot of my personal and my free time really understanding the nitty gritty between what's different between these two systems so that all of those Great Plains users can really start to, have a level of comfort and understanding and, broader tool sets available to help them get there, to help them understand and kind of remove kind of the blur on the, what it really is and what it means, because it is and it can be worth the investment, but for some, it's going to be a lot greater cost than others.
Yeah. And since you touched on it, since that announcement was made in September, have you seen any changes or movement from GP customers?
Definitely have. We've known for a couple of years now that Great Plains was setting a timeline to 2028 and beyond, but that was a couple of years ago. So, with
Yeah.
Summit coming up, my personal feeling is that, they've built a fantastic product. Technology has changed, and the way that we assess and analyze data has changed. And you can't necessarily run a business with the old tech when everybody else is running on a new tech.
Hmm.
So there's a potential to lose out to your competitors if you don't make the investment in modernizing that technology. But ultimately, yeah, it is an exciting place, to consider
Yeah.
for the right people at the right timeline. You do have plenty of time.
Yeah. How with that announcement, how big is the risk really of being in an unsupported environment?
That's a great question. Uh, Based on my experience, there's a variety of customers that use Great Plains. Okay. And if we take, let's say, I don't know, maybe like the 50% of customers that use just GLAP AR Bank Rec, core Great Plains only, and
Yeah.
don't go and get complex with payroll, right? It don't get super complex with fixed assets and taxes and needing a year-end update to accommodate certain things, If they don't really need the year-end updates, Great Plains is going to keep on running. There's
Yeah.
there a risk to letting it just run, probably because, the server's there, it needs replaced. You'll have challenges over time. When Windows 10 like just went away, well, what happens if you can't install Great Plains on like Windows whatever someday,
Yeah.
and you can't get the old version of Windows to keep it alive. So you will have other considerations, that help mitigate that risk,
Yeah.
in terms of staying on Great Plains. And it's worth, having a conversation, with internally among your organization and then ultimately with your partner about what would be the best thing to do.
You just talked indeed that if people are more staying on the finance and the accounting side, then it's all right being in an unsupported environment. But if they get more complex, play around with payroll, it will the impact will be a lot more on the end of support or yeah, end of support from Microsoft. Um, what else will change after 2029 for GP customers?
Hmm. I think after 2029, the different versions, Great Plains version is going to stop. All right, you're going to have 18.x or whatever, 18 point final, whatever they call it. Oh,
Yeah,
we should put a naming convention, contest out for the final, version will be. But
yeah,
ultimately, you'll have Great Plains where you'll have, code you can install. If you have Windows Server, Windows machines, you can install it. So you can preserve it probably a long time. The reality is it's 2024, Rory. I have people running GP 2010 and before that, that's 24 years. So add 24 years to now, and you're at almost 2050. So
yeah.
depends on how long you really want to keep and preserve it because it does work. It does work. It will continue to work. But if you buy new hardware or you buy new, software, you're going to be squeezed on compatibility. I
Yes,
think at some point Microsoft is just going to not allow like a Windows, 32-bit operating system out there. And Great Plains is dependent upon that. So, and even now today with network communications, TLS, which is a security, thing in the network, as well as SSL and services and things. They've become more complex because we need more security. So, Great Plains said that they've got that additional 2 year of security buffer. I don't know if that's what's included there, but you can have the product, but if you can't communicate across the network or install the software, you're truly living in the past. And I just don't see too many people making it that far.
yeah. No, I get it. Even with smaller stuff like apps on my iPhone might not be supported anymore just because the iOS is now is newer, and I can't run the apps that I used to have. And that's just my iPhone. If that's your ERP system, your
Right.
impact is gonna be a lot bigger. So
Right. I
I get
stand
that.
corrected. I think I said 24 years, but I meant 14 there. Either way, it's
Yeah.
still a long time, 2040. So uh,
Yes.
it
Yeah.
reaches out way into the future if you really wanted to.
Yes. Um, Going back to your comment on the payroll, why is that such a big thing?
Payroll is complex. I've been deploying payroll in Great Plains since 2003 and support a lot of companies that do use payroll. They need the payroll tax updates, the tiers, the minimum, the maximum levels, the changes in withholding by state. Like there's a variety of things that Microsoft has been very diligent about putting out there, and they call them the tax updates. They usually whatever they come out. Sometimes there's three, sometimes there's eight or even nine tax updates every year, and they affect different layers of our tax society, the different
Hmm.
states, different jurisdictions. And if you're not getting those updates, then you're not doing payroll accurately. And if you're not doing payroll accurately, you're liable. So
Yes.
you are at risk if you can't do GP payroll beyond that date.
So what would their options be?
Hmm. Um, Start considering, what do you need? What do you have for payroll? Start to assess what your requirements are going to be for payroll. There are a couple of options that are familiar to the Great Plains community that offer online payroll services, right? Business Central's in the cloud. They offer online payroll services. So familiar names would be a go-to, I would think, to look at first. I think after that, there are other payroll services out there. There always have been.
Hmm.
And, for a lot of folks, the way they've collected payroll in the past has changed. A lot of folks are using these guys, right? They're using their phones now to do time and entry. So,
Yeah.
we need to evolve that for your own sake, I think. Anybody that is using payroll is to
Yeah.
look at more online based options because that's where the onboarding is happening now. That's a lot where the reviews are happening. Like you have an employee profile out there now, and a lot of that in an HRIS system is what you get as an added benefit by starting early and starting to be thoughtful about moving your payroll to a new place because it does touch everyone in your organization.
Yeah. And am I correct in saying that BC doesn't have a payroll solution?
There are
That
products available
yeah,
in
ISVs.
in ISV land, but native to Business Central, it does not have like a payroll tax engine, which is something that Great Plains has been really, really quite well known for over the years.
Okay. So would then the consideration be I'll stay in G if just the payroll the end of support for payroll that's being impacted the most. Um, then the consideration would be stay on GP and find a payroll solution, or change everything, go to BC, for example, but then you still need to get a payroll solution, an
Yeah.
ISV that plugs in. Are those the considerations then?
Primarily, yes, I think so. You can do it all or only do part of it. The reality is, you're probably going to want to consider looking at all of it because
Yeah,
the way that you're capturing data from an analytics standpoint, from people doing jobs or booking time may be different than you really want to report on it within, GP or in a future state with Business Central or some other system. And a lot of it is a journal entry anyways for payroll,
yeah,
at the end of the day. So I think it's a kind of a low risk to consider moving sooner rather than later and stabilize the payroll, whether you do GP or not. And if you want to look at a joint system, something that does, partner source wise communicate with and looks and feels, like Business Central, there are definitely some pretty decent options out there.
okay. So what's your take? Should GP customers move to BC or any other ERP for that matter?
I can't say if they should or not actually make the plunge. I think it's a thoughtful process to go that route.
Yeah,
As an organization and a best practice, we really go in and not just jam in an ERP system. So there's a fair number of conversations and dialogues and gathering of intelligence and processes and wish lists and capabilities and all these other new features. All this like gumbo soup of how to do ERP now
yeah.
is so different than it was when they implemented Great Plains. So it's worth just having that conversation up front so that
Hmm.
you have the most efficient route to moving to Business Central that they can.
Okay. Um, which kind of answered the question that I had. But what I did what I wanted to ask, in your opinion, is BC the default or the no-brainer option for GP customers?
I think for most customers, yes, it is. Absolutely. I've been with it since it was announced, essentially to the Great Plains partners in Fargo and years ago. And I've, been in tune with it. I've been trained on it. I've watched it go and grow and mature. And to see what it's doing with analytics now is something that I'm passionate about. So they're
Yeah,
delivering it in the box, starting with this newest wave. There's so many more Power BI reports and Excel linked analytics, you can't not look at this and be timid about it. You get excited when you start to see it.
yeah. That's really good. What else have you noticed that GP customers are overlooking or not considering when thinking about this theme that you want to give, yeah, give the message to
I
them?
I think a lot of them are thinking that it's an upgrade. It is not an upgrade. It is a reimplementation. And
Yeah,
anybody that's doing GP long enough and also knows Business Central, there's a lot of us. There's a lot of us that have been doing this both for a
yeah,
while. They will all tell you it's an implementation. There's no magic button that because you have to train people, right? There's so many other considerations to this move that, a good guide will help make it successful.
yeah. So how should they plan the next 5 years? Or yeah, 5 years until the end of support. 4.5 years.
I think the first one is awareness, right? Make sure key people in your organization know GP's date. Okay.
Yes.
Then the next thing is what does it mean to us? Like, what is our exposure? Right? A lot of people have already been looking at modernization and cloud-based things and moving GP to their own place in the cloud because they really want to be cloud-based already.
Yes.
So there's already a motivating factor, I think, that they just need to kind of latch on and say, right, so, we've changed the last 4, 5, 10, 15 years, right? We can do business, we can track data in a whole new way, especially because all the vendors and all the customers we're doing business with want it
Hmm.
that way. So,
Yeah.
let's stay on the Microsoft platform. Let's learn about its breadth and depth and what it can do to help all of our existing GP users who are really kind of boxed into what they have.
Yeah. No, that's great. I think there's been a lot of wisdom, a lot of insights here in everything that you've shared today, David. And I wanted to thank you for that. Um, I'm sure there will be more news, like Microsoft might make announcements or other things that people will realize like this is how the GP community will be impacted as well. Um, I'd like to keep the invitation open to speak with you again because there's a lot of knowledge there. Having since 1999 worked with GP already. But for now, I really wanted to thank you for sharing your knowledge today.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It's all part of being and having the dynamics mindset. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers. Bye, David. Thanks for watching this episode on the Dynamics Compass podcast. We decided to launch this podcast after having spoken to a lot of people in the community who seem to be looking for answers to the same questions. So then we decided, why don't we find experts in the market that have the answers, interview them, and then release that information for free to help everyone progress their Microsoft Dynamics journey. So we hope that you found this video very informative and helpful for you to continue your journey and keep moving forward. If you would like to hear about any other topics, please write to me on LinkedIn, email me, Rory at thegoodtalent.co, and we'd be happy to have a look. We'll look for the experts that have the answers. We'll interview them and it will be freely available to you. Again, thanks so much for watching. Thanks for your support as well. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.